Thank you. I'm Rob Spindler. I'm the administrator for Archives and Special Collections. I have several hats, two of which that are relevant to this project. I serve as the curator for the Arizona collection and as the university archivist. And so I collect, preserve, and make accessible materials that tell us about the history of the Valley and primarily central Arizona. And then I'm also responsible for collecting and preserving the history of our great university in all of its aspects. This project's pretty neat because it connects those two things. It's a true example of a town-gown relationship that ultimately was, I think, very successful for both the city and our university. And so it's really fun to be able to work with this group and try to bring some of that history to life through your good efforts and taking our raw material and getting it out there and making really fun and interesting products from it. So what I'd like to do today is actually show you very specifically how to find things in our collections. And I think the early goal here is to identify the richest primary source materials that we can from these collections and get them digitized, get them contextualized, and get them out where the team here can actually grab material and make products from it. Like I said, I'm really excited to be part of this project. I came here from the East Coast in 1988. This is my 27th year at ASU, and so I've watched a lot of the change over the years and been a great, maybe not great, but a beneficiary of Dean Elmore and his students and the good work of the city of Tempe and the city's partners in developing the Rio Salado project. So thanks and welcome. Now, I assume most of you have been to the ASU Library's homepage, and what we'll do is I'm going to show you a path through the homepage that will take you to two websites where I've collocated all the digital material that we've put up and the research tools that we have available. So from the library's homepage, using the Find button, research and course guides or library guides. And I think what we'll do is start with Arizona collection. So there you are at the library guides homepage. And if you enter Arizona collection, which is one of the repositories we'll be going to, it's the second thing. Why state and local government comes up first, I'm not sure, but we're always second. So here it is. And that's me when I had shorter hair a few years ago. So ultimately, there's a lot of other information here about how we operate. You might find that interesting. But the places that you're going to be particularly interested in are research tools and digital materials. So starting with research tools, these are basically the places you want to look at. And there are various sources available to you here. In general, books and periodical titles are found through the library's catalog. I assume some of you have found books and journals through the general catalog. I'm not going to spend any time with that on the assumption that you've used it. But it's important to remember that there are book-length works that are going to be relevant in your efforts here. Some of the university archives publications are cataloged in the general catalog, the ASU Library's catalog as well. I always recommend, before you dig deep into primary archival sources, that you spend some time with the secondary literature and background information so that when you get deep in the forest of primary things, they'll be relevant, you'll be able to understand them. Dave may have identified some books and publications in general about the history of the Rio Salado project, but I think you will find things, if not, I know you will find some things of value there. Now, we're going to spend a fair amount of time with Arizona Archives Online because this is ultimately the place where archivists in Arizona describe their collections. Now, in an archival environment, we deal in scale. This department takes in about 200 linear feet of archives a year. So one bookshelf there is about 3 feet. So our job ultimately is to achieve control over this bulk of materials that we get in, and then as we have time, do detail work that enables us to drill down and get more information about what we have and expose that information to our users. When material comes in, at first we create things called accession records. If any of you have worked in a museum environment, this is a familiar term. But the purpose of an accession record is basically to describe this shipment of stuff that we got from this person. And what we're looking for is to identify the source of the material and how to contact that person. About 3 sentences about the material, kind of formats of material, the subjects that it's about, and a rough date range for this group of material. This might be 1 box, or we have accession records for 1,000 boxes of material. So really high-level abstract description. And then most importantly, in a complete accession record, we do inventory control. Where do we put the stuff? And we have material located in Hayden Library. We have material located in a remote storage facility at the Polytechnic campus. You will encounter things that say by appointment only. And that usually means that the material is located at Polytechnic, and I want you to write me or call me for an appointment to get to that stuff. I'll make a request on your behalf to have it retrieved from remote storage. We're running trucks once a week at this point. Now we're going to have to do this more often going forward, but right now it's once a week. So plan ahead. Usually it's Wednesdays. The truck usually comes in about 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. Anxiously awaited. So when you look at Arizona Archives Online. The challenge with this is that it's a statewide database. And you can see the participating institutions that are located here. So if you use the advanced search feature in Arizona Archives Online, it will give you this drop-down that enables you to select which institutions and which repositories to search in. I highly recommend this because otherwise you're going to get citations to things in Tucson or Flagstaff. So if we're doing just the Arizona collection, and we enter the word accession records, I want to show you what these look like. I've got to use the search button at the bottom. Nice. Okay, top result. This one guide online describes 2,132 linear feet of material we have not had time to work on yet in detail. So the only information we have about what this material is very brief descriptive information. We're actually writing these in more detail lately so we can, so they're more useful. But you'll see in certain collections where things have come in multiple shipments. And they have different accession numbers. And you'll also see that all of these things are marked material available by appointment only. So if you encounter an accession record that you're interested in, send me an email. I'll need to know the accession number, this number, and if you can identify it, a box number. Some accession records actually have box numbers in them. There are a few different flavors of description found here. So, alrighty, so going back to, let's go broader than accession records and see what we have in general. So again, I'm going to use the advanced search. We're going to limit it to Arizona collection, and let's try Salt River that way. Okay, this is interesting. This is a citizens activist group that was opposed to building the Rio Salado project. And when you bring up the detail from this link, you get the call number, which is all important, historical note, who they were, scope and content note, describes roughly what's in the collection, fairly broad terms. And then it's a one-box collection. Some subject headings, and then here you get into what exactly is in the collection. Now, in order to see these paper materials, what you would do is complete a call slip in the reading room, a little orange form, using the call number, MSS 93, and a box and folder number if you want to retrieve a specific folder. We can retrieve typically we retrieve things at the box level. So, point being that you can do much of this research at home, or wherever you are. This is globally accessible information. So, there's one collection. So back to search results. But this is basically how you can get through this stuff very quickly. William R. Schultz, Bill Schultz, and here's some things specifically about the project in the 1997-1993 period. Carolyn Warner, this is more likely about the community college because we know she was the leader of our Board of Education, Superintendent of Public Instruction in the state of Arizona. And you can learn all these things by looking at the biographical notes or the scope and content notes. Here's a collection of small manuscripts. These are usually one folder things. A single letter, a pamphlet, and there's some results there. We have to break, these files are so big we have to break them up into segments, so we get a few of them. Congressman Rhodes apparently was interested in this in the 1970s. Now this might be a little different. This probably relates to federal funding for aspects of the project. I don't know if we'll get any more detail by looking at this. Sometimes it takes a minute to jump to the first instance of the word. But you get the idea, ultimately. It's a quick way to get a handle on what exactly we have. Photography. John Rhodes III, Congressman Rhodes' son, who was also a congressman, got involved in the early 90s. Governor Pyle, Rio Salado Development District is in fact the same thing, correct? So it's a good clue because you can adapt your search results based upon what you find. As you find more what we call corporate headings, or names of organizations, or names of individuals, you can go back up to the top of Arizona Archives Online and search again for those individuals and find different things. So, what did we get? There was 23 different collections in the Arizona collection related that have the keywords Rio Salado in their descriptions. Let's keep going here and look at some other sources. The Arizona and Southwestern Index is our old database for archival and ephemera and things like that. And this is detailed description, usually of individual items or small groups of individual items. So here, well, let's do the same search and see what comes up. You'll notice that there's a list of databases here. It's automatic, because we came in through this route, it automatically highlights the Arizona and Southwestern Index for you. But there could possibly be things in the Mexican American Index, or we'll visit the University Archives Index later. You have an all indexes option, but you'll get a lot of noise because it'll pick up all these other databases. So here's Rio Salado in the Arizona collection, basically. This might be a good place to pick up some secondary source material. Some of this might actually be student papers. Some of it will be news clips and pamphlets and small reports. So we get an idea here. Now, to retrieve this material, fill out a call slip with this call number. Give it to the reference staff at the desk. They'll have a student go back and pull the material for you. Why do we not have open stacks in the archives? The first problem is you can't find things because there's 25 different numbering systems for stuff back there. And so that's why the call numbers look so strange. When you think about what has happened in 30 years, we've adopted and brought in all these new collections from different special collections around the university. And in the old days, they all had different methods for how they numbered and identified stuff. And it's not like we have time to go back and renumber everything that we bring in. So what we've learned to do is absorb these collections and leverage the work that's already been done. So that's one reason why we have closed stacks. Can't get things disappear. What also happens is when you're done with it, we have to put it back in the right place, because if it doesn't get reshelved correctly, it's as good as gone. There's 25,000 linear feet of archival material back there and over at remote storage. So little things like numbering and retrieval are a big deal in an operation like this. So there's, let's see, what did we end up with? 22 results for Rio Salado. How else might we search this database? Keywords? Salt River?
Almar, yeah.
All right, we'll get to him when we get to University Archives.
Okay.
Now, so you might want to look at contextual information. What did the Salt River look like before there was a lake? Oh, good. We're going to get some photographs. 440 entries for Salt River. It's going to bring up other things like Salt River Project. There are other names of organizations that use Salt River. So this is a little broader search. It's going to take some sifting. Okay, adding the term digital photographs to your keywords in this database returns a list of entries where we have attached thumbnails. Boom. Now this is broad for Salt River, so you get Granite Reef Dam, far upstream. Now, nice thing about this is if you guys are going to work in groups, or if you need to bring content to committee for discussion, you can download this, save image file, or it should be a relatively decent size if you print it. So a little bit more resolution than you might find in your average website. This is always the best part, because you get to look at really cool old things. That's the River 1900 with members of the Lures family. So adding digital photographs to your search, see how it appears in these descriptions? That's how you segregate out what has thumbnails from what's purely paper and negative material. 1979. Yeah, it looks way too familiar. Okay, now... Cool, some color. Yay. We're slowly getting color things out there, but we've got so much black and white to work through. This is fun just for historical purposes. That is not a color photograph. That is a black and white photograph that has been hand-colored. Back in the day, that's how they made colors. They painted things. Arizona Republic Index, this leads to a commercial product called Access World News. Most of the newspaper indexing for the Arizona Republic peters out in the late 80s from the commercial sources. This has to do with copyright issues. And so it's problematic finding news material for the 60s, 70s, and most of the 80s. I'm going to show you some tricks about how to do that. But I'm not sure the Arizona Republic Index is going to be all that helpful unless you're looking really at the 90s and 2000s. The Arizona Index is a periodical and journal article index that is produced by U of A and U of A Library. So things like Arizona Highways, Journal of Arizona History, those kinds of sources are available through the Arizona Index. And then this is a specialized database for a particular collection that is not relevant to what you guys are doing. We have one of the last remaining card files in the university libraries. It's in that brown box behind John there. And it has really capricious, really inconsistent and unpredictable indexing for the Arizona Republic from actually very early 20th century up until the 80s. What you'll find is that the indexing is really male-dominated, largely about politics and water. But it's my source for last resort. If I'm looking for news coverage of an event, for you guys in the 60s, 70s, and most of the 80s, I'll check that card file. Reference staff at the desk can get you access to the room and help you check the card file. But it's paper. You have to go in there and actually write down the citation, and then you would go downstairs to the microfilm collection to see the back Arizona Republics. Republic has a somewhat of an archive, but it's a pay access situation. Last time I looked at it. Interestingly, early newspaper, you got better access to pre-1927 newspapers right now than you do to 1985 newspapers because of copyright, but that's a long story. Okay, that's a quick run through the databases. Now for digital materials, you'll see different kinds of things here, and this is where it gets more fun because you actually get to see more stuff. We have a collection of Arizona Collection audio and visual materials, and this is basically, as we have resources and time, we actually digitize specific things. from the collections. The one thing I'll point out to you, which is I think relevant, is this. This is raw silent film footage from, I believe it's 8mm film, documenting the flood in the Phoenix metropolitan area in 1980. And there's some content here that might be useful to you guys if you want to talk about the context of flood control, one of the purposes of the Rio Salado project. It's raw amateur motion picture film. A man named Kretzer had a camera. Oh, come on. Doesn't look all that bad. When you get further into it, it gets a little more interesting. There you go. Now, if you want this video, you can, first of all, here's a citable URL with a handle. That's a permanent link address to this piece of video. So if you want to cite it somewhere where you know people will find it, use the handle. That address will never change, unlike your average URL, which changes the average lifespan of a URL is 45 days. So this will never change. The other thing that's great about this is you can download it. So if you go up here and right-click on the file name, save link as, there's your MOV file, and you can save it directly to the hard drive. So let's go back and sort of repeat the whole journey for university archives. Now we're going to talk about stuff that's specific to the history of the institution. And so we're back on the library's homepage. We're going into library guides. And I probably will never live this down, but I called it Finding ASU History. So Finding ASU History then takes you to that same, looks like the other page for the Arizona collection. I intentionally made it consistent. Research tools are mostly the same, right? Catalog, Arizona Archives Online. Now we might do AAO differently this time because before we limited it to Arizona collection. So let's look at University Archives and see what it says about Rio Salado. Now we got 20 items in this search. Looking at Dean Elmore's collection, there's the call number for it. We actually recently finished working on this. You'll want to spend time in here. This is probably the signature collection as far as ASU's involvement in the Salt River Project. We spent more time in writing a biography and the scope notes for this. 26 boxes, so like 13 feet of material. But you'll see the word Rio Salado, wherever it appears in the guide, is highlighted for us. And it has these wonderful little navigational arrows that will bounce you to the next instance. Really, they will. So that's Arizona Archives Online for University Archives. Now here's the sister index for the Arizona and Southwest index we searched before. This is, again, details, individual items, photographs, ephemera. So let's do Rio Salado. Let's see how much we get. 18 results there. Video recordings from the horizon. We were just talking about that. March 1987. Polling about the project. Now these are 1987. This is going to be obsolete U-matic videotapes. What we're going to need to do is digitize those for you. They have to be outsourced. They have to be baked, believe it or not, to avoid. Basically, the age of these tapes, they self-destruct when you play them. And so baking is the conservator's way of preserving those tapes so they can be digitized. Now, we do have something different here in the ASU newspaper index, but again, a similar coverage. This runs like 1987 to 2014. So I'm not sure what we're going to get here. Let's see what happens. The student journalists did cover these things. And so the state press turns out to be a relatively rich source. We have them all in paper. We have them all in microfilm. And maybe someday we can get permission to digitize it. So you get the idea. And often, the other thing to think about is that you can use this as an index to the Republic. So if there's a big event about Rio Salado that the student journalist covered, and you can identify the date of that event, you can then go to the Arizona Republic microfilm and look up that day's paper to see how the Republic dealt with it.
Is there usually a pretty good correlation between the days with the events? Or,
well, you know,
or usually like a week before or a week after?
Yeah. I mean, it would be wise. It wouldn't surprise me if the Republic reporters had the ability to cover things in more detail. So if there was like a conference or a particular event, they might have had, or an election, they might have had 5 stories in the week before the election, right? So you want to think contextually and creatively about what actually happened and what records might have been generated from those events. Archivists think this way all the time because our ability to catalog stuff in detail is so limited. We have so much stuff. So thinking about who's responsible for a certain action, what records they might produce, what is the context of an event, who are the people who created the event, organized it, spoke at it. There's all kinds of ways to think about, to find new ways to search these databases and get other ideas. Okay. ASU News Archive. This is basically the ASU Media Relations site there that gives you more recent information. Digital materials. We got Sparky here in 1953 for the fun of it, along with the Sparkettes. And then same tabs, right? Research tools, digital materials. ASU 50th, no. General catalogs, no. ASU Generations is about the history of ASU. Science Pioneers, don't think so. It's an exhibit about early science history. West Campus, Bill Bailey. I don't think there's any river footage in that. That happens to be our earliest motion pictures for ASU, 1937, 1938. Pretty amazing stuff. Tom Wright, yeah, Starsky. New ASU Story. We have something. This is a website we built almost 15 years ago now that was intended to be a history of ASU, but also a stock photo collection. And it has a search engine within it. Okay, so this will lead you to some things. Here's a 1988 ASU Insight news story. Archives audio and visual materials. Now we're back to the repository. Okay, that's pretty much the tools. I know there's stuff in President's Office records I'm not sure we found. So there's some of this I'm going to have to dig for myself. And let's go over the reading room generally. When you come to the Lures reading room, we have special security procedures because we got expensive things.
That's this room out here.
This is the room right out here. So they'll ask you to take your backpacks and bookcases and stuff and lock them in a locker. We provide a lock for you. The lockers are in the hallway outside. You can bring your laptop in, you can bring your phone in, you can bring a digital camera in. You are allowed to use your phone and your digital camera. They ask you to fill out a form and sort of keep track of what you're photographing. So it is possible to get quick copies of things at no charge. If you need large amounts of photocopying done, first 50 pages is usually free for university business projects. We're probably going to have to work out something on this. I don't know how much photocopying you guys really want to do with this. And then what I'd like to do as far as photo duplication or audio and visual duplication is I'd like to try to get a single order for the project, if it's possible to compile that. So if you guys can work together to compile lists of things you want duplicated, meaning like high quality, publication quality duplication services, if we can compile that into one group and I can see how big it is, search it to make sure we haven't actually already scanned some of these things. Remember, there's a lot of stuff we've already scanned that's not described yet. Then for everything we've already scanned, we'll basically use Dropbox or put it on an external drive and deliver it to you guys. For other things, I'll work with Dave on figuring out costs and turnover time and things like that. What questions do you have?
When you request a box, do you just send an email, or is there a particular form you need to fill out?
When
Or do we email you and you'll take us through that?
if the material says by appointment only, email it to me. And what I need is it will almost always have an accession number, and sometimes you can identify a box number. If it doesn't say by appointment only, you should be able to complete a little orange paper call slip in the reading room with that call number and hand it to the staff, and they'll retrieve it for you fairly quickly.
5 or 10 minutes. 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you can give them piles of call slips too. And in fact, you could even tear a bunch of them off the pad in there and take them home and complete them and hand in the call slips, and they'll go get a cup of coffee. So there's lots of ways we can work with you to try to expedite retrieval. But I encourage you to do as much searching as you can at home or wherever you happen to be with your machine, and prepare for that, and then come in and complete call slips. We'll get the stuff for you. But you're very lucky to get to see a bunch of really cool, very rare historical material in this project. So if you like history, I think you'll really enjoy this work.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. We're all going to learn in this process, so I'm looking forward to it.